In this video, I'm going to briefly outline how you do row-level security. I'm going to go back to my user file here that has privileges in it. You'll notice again, I'm going to reiterate that there's no inherent value in these authorities. They're not hierarchical. There's nothing special about the naming. It's just a text string. So I have 4 authorities here that I use to control my query modules that I can access. And since we're talking row-level security, I'm going to talk about these 2 authorities right here. And what happens here, I'm going to show you the user interface part of this first. So I'm running my Tomcat server. I'm going to go over here to my browser and go back to my selection list here. I'm going to refresh this just so you can see that I'm actually in it live. And I'm going to make a birth selection here. Go birth count. And what I want to do is I want to show you how the row level access is working from the user interface standpoint, and then I'll show you how we actually physically secure that. So if I go to, I know that it's, I go back to my editor here. I know that it's, my guess is it's a local health district that's been restricted, and actually I'll show you the dimension file here. Here's the dimension file that I used for the birth geolocal health district that's being referenced, and you'll notice here I had to add in an authority. And again, the string value within that authority has to match, or I won't be able to see this value. I won't be able to make this. I won't be able to make this selection. So now that you can see that I have all of the local health districts with the appropriate authority, I'll go back to the user interface and I'll show you how that's being limited. So I come down here to select geographic area, and you'll notice here local health district, and it only shows the all value here is being injected by the XSLT. This is not a normal selection that's in your dimension list. But you can see here I only have access to Bear River and Salt Lake Valley. So again, if I go back to this list here, you'll notice local health district 1 is Bear River and 4 is Salt Lake Valley. And go back here to my user that I'm logged in as, you'll see that's what I have. I have 1 and 4. So that's the user interface side of things, how you restrict selections. Now let's look at the actual security on that. And the way this works is we have to use a special voter. So I'm going to go up here to the top of my file, and I have a filter chain that's called Secure Query Result Filter. And let's go look at that definition right now. So that's my security query result filter chain for query results. And the last item here, it has this, these are the standard filters that it uses. And then we want to look at this guy right here, the security secure query result access interceptor filter. So let's go down to the bottom and take a look at that guy. And what this does is it has a metadata source. This is the standard security metadata source. It has the standard authentication manager, and then it uses a different access decision manager. It uses the query result decision manager. Let's go up and look at that one real quick. And you'll see that it uses a standard unanimous based decision manager, which means that all of the voters here will have to respond with an allow. If any of them deny, you will not be allowed through. So its standard voters is saying it has to be authenticated, and this standard authentication voter uses this metadata source, and we'll talk about this a little more in another video on the details of how this secure metadata source thing works. But anyway, this authentication voter, so they have to be authenticated, and then it uses the authorization voter. The authorization voter reads through this metadata source, and it makes sure that you're authorized for the actual query module. And by the way, if you have 12 or 14 or 15 different query modules that all need to be secured, every one of those requests will have to have an entry in this secure metadata source. Otherwise, it's open, even though you might lock it down. As I showed in an earlier video, you can actually have a false sense of security. It might not show up in your user list, but it might not be secured. So you got to make sure that anything that is going to be secured has to be in this, it has to be in a metadata source, and the metadata source has to be used by the particular voter that you're using to make that determination. So going back to my query result decision manager, it uses the standard authentication, the standard authorization, which uses the metadata source. And then there's a special one here that's called Security Query Module Dimension Value Voter. And again, this decision manager is a unanimous based one, which means everything has to vote to allow. So let's go look at this one right here. And this definition uses a special IBIS Java class, which is called Query Module Dimension Value Voter. And what this does is it looks at the actual query module, and it goes out and it checks to make sure that there are no values in your query module request in the selected dimensions that they're not supposed to have. And if it finds one, it'll deny it, and you'll actually get an error thrown, and the user will not be allowed to make that selection. There's one other piece I need to show you, and that is in the secure XML file. Hold on. So I'm going to open up my Big Spring Secure XML right here. One of the problems with, not one of the problems, but one of the issues with using Spring Security is it is handled before the request actually makes it to the servlet for processing. And so since the IBIS Q result is not available until the request has already made it through to the servlet, which gets the result from IBIS Q and merges it in, we actually can't limit group bys. And so what I had to do for row level security in the query module world is I had to go through and make sure that if they grouped by a geolocal health district that has authorities in there, and actually didn't filter on any of those geolocal health districts, that those values were removed. And the reason for that is obvious, because if you did a group by and you didn't filter, you would see them all. So I have a special process in here that is called, it's a bean. So here I have my request controller, and it is going through and deleting all unauthorized result records from the model map, and that will clean up any values that might have made it through had we not cleaned them up. And it's impossible to get this within the voter because, again, the voter happens before the request comes through. So this is kind of a post-processing cleanup step that has to be done. If you don't do this, if you don't use the standard core definition, or if you use your own and you don't include this, you potentially will have a security hole where people will be able to make selections and view data that they shouldn't. Just to help connect the dots, I'm going to go back and show the site-specific URL request mapping for that secure request, the result. So I'm going to go down here to my secure query result, and you'll notice that this goes through the secure query result controller, which is what I just had open and showing you, which is this right here. And that's the one that has this remove the invalid values. So that's pretty much how you need to do row level security. Again, you need to have this piece in your controller that cleans up any invalid values. You need to have something. You need to have the proper authorities within your user. You need to have the authority listed in the dimension value, and then in your security, you need to have the appropriate voters along with the appropriate metadata sources that checks to see if they actually can access that query module. One other thing I want to point out here is that I only have this secure query result access interceptor filter hooked up to secure query result type requests. So anytime a secure query result type request comes in, it has to go through this process. So hope that helps. Again, I'm going to have one more video where I'm going to discuss the voters and the decision managers in greater detail so that some light can be shed on how you need to configure things. Hope this was helpful. Please give me a call if you have any questions. Thanks.